But, yeah.
Test. Oh.
I don't have the motivation to do it.
Yeah.
I'm more of a like a
Okay, good evening.
run.
I'm Roger Hughes. I'm the chair of the Mental Health Ministry team, and I'm here to welcome you to our guided meditation event. Meditation's been shown to be a helpful aspect of our mental health and our wellness efforts, and we're so lucky to have Juliana Cesano here to teach us more about meditation. Juliana's been a student of Theosophy and spirituality for over 25 years. From an early age, she's been actively involved with the work of the Theosophical Society, which took her to move from her native Argentina to India and later to the United States. Her many years dedicated to the study and practice of meditation from various traditions has encouraged her to share this knowledge with others. She's an international speaker, a yoga instructor, a spouse, a mother, and the manager of the Theosophical Society's Quest Bookshop in Wheaton. She also offers a guided meditation each Sunday morning through the Theosophical Society. It is my pleasure to welcome Juliana Cesano.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you for coming over for this subject that interests many, but doesn't sit many on the cushion. It seems like we're all interested in meditation, but then practicing meditation is a completely different story, especially in the way life is pushing us to be so busy, doing so much. But then at some point, we realize that when we rush from one thing to another, at the end of the day, either we are exhausted or there is some sense of emptiness, like we haven't really lived, we haven't really experienced the day. And so that, for some people, meditation comes into place. For other people, prayer comes into place. But today we'll talk about one particular type of meditation that is mindfulness. But before we go into that, I wanted to start by talking a little bit about what is meditation and where does it come from. And I wish I could say it comes from this particular source, but actually we don't really know, because meditation is kind of prehistoric. This was a practice that was transmitted orally in the past, so there's no register of it, there's no records. But we see, for the very first time, we see the name or the word meditation is actually, it's a translation, it's an English translation of another word. The word dhyana in Sanskrit, or the word jhana in Pali. And those words come from the Hindu tradition and the Buddhist tradition. So the first records that we have about meditation come from China and from India. Most people identify meditation with the Buddha, with Buddhism. But prior to that, the Buddha learned from other sages, from other teachers, and they taught him meditation. So in the Upanishads, for example, in the sacred scriptures from Hinduism, we see the teaching of meditation. And this is a teaching that comes to us as a spiritual practice, in the same way that prayer has been a practice for some traditions. And there's a lot of overlap. There's, when we go to the quality of silence, there's very little difference between meditation and prayer when we really sit in silence and contemplation. Now, meditation has been also introduced to the Western world, to the mainstream by mostly by mindfulness. And there's different schools that made meditation more available to everyone because there has been studies that show that meditation has a direct impact on the well-being of the physical body and a direct impact on the well-being of our psychological nature. So the practice of mindfulness has changed the lives of many people when it comes to reducing stress, anxiety. It has helped with depression. It's certainly, this is still on research, and when we go to, scientific research, in the scientific field, things are very strict, so the research is still going on. We have to really do a lot of research to be able to prove that these things are actually correct. But I think the best proof of that, or the best way of trusting scientific research is by trying and seeing how that works in you, and if that actually has an effect on you. Because, for example, one of the benefits of meditation is an increase of attention. Our attention span is becoming shorter and shorter. So when we dedicate time to be still, be quiet, and notice, and begin to, bring our attention to one point, then we train our mind in a particular way, and that has an effect on the brain directly. It is said that after 8 weeks of mindfulness practice, you can see a transformation, a physical change in the brain. It also impacts the prefrontal cortex, which has to do with stress, and the amygdala, which has to do with the way we handle emotions. So one of the people I really like that brought mindfulness to the Western world from a scientific perspective was Jon Kabat-Zinn. I don't know if you have heard of him. Does any of you practice meditation or have ever tried any type of? All right, okay, thanks, good to know. So Jon Kabat-Zinn in 1979 started this program that is called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Clinic or program. And he used the principles of mindfulness, which are rooted in the Buddhist tradition, to see what kind of impact it would have in our psychological health and our physical health, in the levels of stress, anxiety, depression, and chronic pain. And he was very, very, very successful, to the point that he not only reached the people who were having these conditions, but he reached a tremendous amount of people like me who were not, for example, suffering from any of particular challenges, but was interested in meditation. So what is mindfulness? There's many ways in which we can define meditation. Because, like I said at the beginning, since meditation comes from so many different traditions, Hinduism, from Taoism, from Jainism, actually, there's records of ancient Egypt having certain type of meditation practice, and then Buddhism. Meditation being a spiritual practice, an attempt to become still enough to get to know a part of us that is mostly quiet but very, very powerful, which is our divine nature, or our spiritual nature. So coming from so many different traditions, then meditation, the different type of meditations are many, 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 because each tradition has its own inclination. And so sometimes words are used, or repetition of mantras, which is repetition of phrases, sacred words, Sometimes silence is used, or just one word, images are used, and so on and so forth. But like I said, today we will explore mindfulness, which is a very specific practice from the Buddhist tradition, and it doesn't add anything to life, it doesn't add anything into the practice, but requires us to be fully present in this moment. So let's see how I would like to use the working definition of mindfulness that Jon Kabat-Zinn used. He said that mindfulness is to pay attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, and as if your life depended on it. And he says, because it does. And we're going to see why. So to pay attention, what is to pay attention? We can be sitting here and be in a completely different place. We can be sitting here and be absorbed by what happened yesterday, what is going to happen later today, the judgment you have about this moment. But to pay attention is to gather. We all have the capacity to gather our attention and bring it here. So it's like it's a type of caring, actually. We care about this moment, so we pay attention. We care about the flower in our garden or our child, our spouse, so we pay attention. So paying attention on purpose, he says, which would be, not just by chance, but with intention. So, mindfulness is a practice that we can do for 20 minutes as we sit, but it's also a practice we can do from the moment we wake up in the morning. So we can say, today I'm going to pay attention on purpose, having the intention of being here, of being present, or whatever you decide to pay attention to. So paying attention on purpose. Non-judgmentally, which is the hardest part, I think. It's as hard as paying attention. Because our mind has been trained to judge. Whether it is positively or negatively, it's not like just, we're judging negatively. To emit judgment, to say something, to comment about things. So even beautiful things. We are in front of a wonderful sunset, and we had to comment about it. We had to say, "Oh, what a beautiful sunset." It's just this habitual thing of we have to label things. We have to say how they are. And mindfulness teaches us that, or shows us that, the best way of being present is just being present without any additional commentary. So it's being there in silence, becoming one with whatever it is that we're seeing. Because the moment we label something, the moment we judge something, we change it. It's like it becomes ours, and it becomes related to past experience. Notice that most of the judgment we do is related to past. The experiences we have had, the things we have learned, the things people have told us, the labels we have put on us, the labels other people have put on us. So judgment comes from the past. In this moment, like let's say we don't have memory of the past. How would you judge this moment? This moment just is, right? Just right here, right now, for example. Just is. So they comment on the, and it could be, this is all planned. This was all planned. Just for you to see your judgment, see?
I'm being judged. Literally, making sure the
So that's an interesting observation, to start to see how do we relate to this moment, So we go back to paying attention on purpose, non-judgmentally. So this is the cultivation of layers and layers of being here, of being present. And instead of accumulating layers, we just begin to let go of layers. Let go of that, of whatever comment. The comment is going to appear anyway, because if it's something that is habitual for us, it's going to come to the surface of the mind. But when we are mindful, we begin to notice that there is a commentary. And we see it, and we say, look, I'm making a judgment about this. I'm not going to make a judgment about the judgment, because then it will get even more complicated. I just want to stay there and be present. It's one of the ways that meditation has been defined is as clear seeing, or seeing clearly. Seeing clearly. We begin to see the things that we haven't seen before. We begin to notice all the things we haven't noticed before. We are not necessarily wanting to change them, but just seeing them, noticing them, is going to change things in us. Because that's what happens to all people who practice these type of meditations or just practices of being present. So, continuing with the working definition. Being present on purpose, paying attention on purpose. In this moment, in the present moment, is the third one. Paying attention on purpose in the present moment. What is the present moment? It's the idea of time is a complex subject. What is time? But just this moment, we can say, is like, moment by moment by moment. It's like now. It's this constant now. And so it's not paying attention on purpose to the past or paying attention on purpose to the future. It's paying attention on purpose to this moment as it unfolds. And what happens is that paying attention to this moment can have a remarkable effect on the way we live the next moment. And that is what becomes very important about mindfulness. Because, just to give an example, if we notice, if we're at home and we're trying to do 10 things at the same time, and our child is like, Mom, 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 and we feel this inside that it starts to build, that it's a certain level of stress or anxiety, and we're present, we can see that, and we can recognize it and say, oh, this is arising within me. And that seeing changes the way that we react, changes the way that perhaps we choose to deal with that situation. It makes something within us. Because mindfulness also changes our behavior. It changes the way we respond, we react to life. As meditation does, as prayer does too. As intention and the development of virtue does too. So in the present moment. non-judgmentally, and as if your life depended on it. And like John Kabat-Zinn says, it does depend on being present. Our life depends on that. Because like we were saying at the beginning, when we don't pay attention, life passes by and we don't get to see it. We don't get to experience it. You know, we wake up in the morning and we jump out of bed and we're ready with a to-do list. But if instead we took the time to notice that we're warm in a bed that feels good, that the light of the sun is entering through the window and maybe, you know, showing us something beautiful about our room. And whatever we're able to perceive from the moment we're there. So life begins to have a very different type of quality that can be absent when we just jump from one thing to the other. So it's like the small things of life begin to reveal themselves in a completely new light because we're seeing them clearly. We begin to see them as we hadn't seen them before. And that can be something outside of us or inside of us. Something that people say when they start doing a meditation practice is like, my mind is so restless. And you know, for the most part, your mind has been restless all this time, but you haven't noticed. You just haven't seen it clearly. So it's not that your mind has changed now that you're trying to meditate. No, that's how your mind has been all this time. And the beauty of this is that we're not trying to change the nature of our mind. We're not trying to change the fact that the mind is going to bring thoughts to this moment, that is going to bring judgment or whatever it is, worries, anxiety. No, we're just going to watch that. We're just going to see it clearly. So there's a lot of relief from this, in the sense that we're not trying to achieve anything here. Because the moment you associate meditation with emptiness of mind, you're going to struggle for the whole way, because the mind is very, very rarely empty of thought. It's in the nature of the mind to be for movement to exist. Eventually, with a lot of practice and a lot of time, the mind becomes still. It's like when you want to train your physical body, and it takes time. You need to discipline yourself and go out and exercise and try, and your body begins to build the muscles that then allows it to do even harder, a harder workout. And a similar way with the mind and the emotions in the Theosophical teachings. There is this concept of the mind and the emotions. You know, in the same way that we have a physical body, we have a mental body, and we have an emotional body that are not, that have subtler matter, but we are also working with those bodies. So when we practice mindfulness, we are bringing order into that mental body. We're bringing harmony, silence, and this is, across religious traditions, silence per se has a tremendous power. It can heal so much. The silence that allows everything to be present, to be there. Even thoughts. But just the intention of slowing down, consciously slowing down and paying attention. We want to do a little practice, so I would like to know the time. I don't see what time it is from here, so I don't. Oh, okay, we have a few minutes before we can do a practice. So I'll read to you a quote from one of my favorite teachers, whose name is Pema Chodron, and she's from the Tibetan tradition. She says, meditation is about seeing clearly the body that we have, the mind that we have, the domestic situation that we have, the job that we have, and the people who are in our lives. It's about seeing how we react to all these things. It's seeing our emotions and thoughts just as they are right now, in this very moment, in this very room, on this very seat. It's about not trying to make them go away, not trying to become better than we are, but just seeing clearly with precision and gentleness. And I want to dwell a little bit about these two last words, precision and gentleness, especially gentleness. Precision gives us the idea that, we become experts at seeing. And the fun thing is to become an expert of seeing without judging. It's like, if you put any person in front of a tree and you ask them to tell you how many shades of brown they can see, they'll probably tell you 3 or 4, maximum 6. But if you put a painter in front of the tree, someone who's been doing especially very, very detailed painting of human faces and or other objects, and you ask them how many shades of brown they can see, they can probably see 25 or more. So we become precise about the things that we see, and they tell us a lot. They tell us a lot. Sometimes not necessarily conceptually. It's not a knowledge that comes with concepts. It could be, but many times it's just the impression of it. So it has to do with self-discovery and self-knowledge. And the other word was gentleness. John Kabat-Zinn says that practicing mindfulness on a regular basis is a radical act of love toward oneself. A radical act of love. So this observation of this awareness that we're cultivating of the present moment is not neutral in feeling. It has gentleness. It has kindness. It has an element of compassion in it that embraces, a compassion that embraces anything and everything that we are. With that compassion, then it's very easy to accept any thoughts that we have, or any emotions that we have, or any pain that we may have. So it's a very kind awareness. So when we take time every day to sit down for 15, 20 minutes, or 10 minutes, or 5 minutes, to be in silence and pay attention in this compassionate atmosphere and this kindness, things begin to change. They begin to change at the level of the mind, at the level of emotions, and then that has an impact even in the physical body. We know that everything that, stress has a direct impact on the physical body. How many illnesses are stress related? Many, many. And our lives become better. They become more positive, more joyful, at least more peaceful. More peaceful. So in the practice that we're going to do today for just 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to attempt the mindfulness practice. There are so many, I feel very tempted to do variations of that because there are things that I really like that really work for me and that come from other traditions, but we're going to stick to mindfulness today. And the premise of this is that we're going to bring our attention, our focus, our awareness to this moment, and we're going to bring it to the breath. But you're free to choose where you want to bring the attention within this moment. So you can choose your breath. And when we say breath, it could be the nostrils, it could be the breath that you feel at the tip of your nose or through the whole nostrils. It could be the movement of your chest as it expands and contracts. It could be your belly also. When we say breath, there's so many areas of breath. So that's a choice. But in any type of meditation, there is something that's called the object of meditation, which is where we're bringing our one-pointedness. In a spiritual, in any religious tradition, we bring our one-pointedness to the divine. We bring our one-pointedness to the heart. In mindfulness, we bring our one-pointedness to the breath or to the sensations in the body. We can bring our attention to our feet. Doesn't matter as long as it's in this moment. There is a part of us, when we close our eyes, and you can even do it with your eyes open. There's a part of us that is conscious of this moment. And we're going to see that part of us is free, it's independent. It's independent of past experiences. It's independent of whatever has happened to us or is happening to us right now. So it's a presence that is there in silence, watching. So we can also just come to that place, to the place of that part of us that watches this moment, that sees this moment. And you're going to notice how thoughts come into play. They go, they come and go. And sometimes they come, and they never go. Hopefully they come and go, but it doesn't matter. So you notice the thoughts, and you come back to your anchor. You come back to the object of meditation. Sometimes it's called anchor. I like John Kabat-Zinn calls it what you're going to feature. It's like you feature the breath, or you feature sensations in the body. So you're making that a priority. You're focusing on that. So one thing. You can also choose a word, like one word that is very meaningful to you. It could be love, it could be peace, it could be Lord, Mother, whatever that is. But we want to keep it simple. For today, we want to keep it very simple. And as we do this practice together, we're going to focus on the breath. But then just know that when you're on your own, you choose your anchor. And you return to that gently, with compassion. Nowhere to go, nothing to achieve, no expectations. Just breathing and being present. So this practice can also be done as I was saying before, throughout the day. There's normally a distinction between formal practice, which is the time you set aside and you sit down to meditate. But mindfulness is something that we can have like kind of in the back of our minds as an intention of like, today I'm going to try to pay attention. See what it is that I see, that I notice. So let's try a little bit of a practice before we go into questions or comments. And remember that when you're at home, you can, or even here, you can keep your eyes open. You can look down, or you can close your eyes. I normally close my eyes, but it's interesting to mix it sometimes and see what happens. So making yourself comfortable with the soles of your feet on the floor and keeping a steady spine, lifting the top of your head and aligning the neck with your spine. Relaxing your shoulders down. So it's a relaxed posture, but it's also firm, or there is it's not an invitation to fall asleep, but to fall awake. As soon as you close your eyes, notice how you arrive into this moment. If you weren't here yet. There's this part of you that is aware of this moment-to-moment unfoldment. And this part of us that is aware notices things. It notices the body. So as we notice the body, we are going to bring that gentleness, that kindness. Allowing your breath to move freely without trying to change it. So notice if that awareness itself of the body shifts something, maybe very subtly, like we are seeing the sensations in the body. And perhaps if you notice tension, that seeing, that compassionate, kind seeing will invite you to relax. So bringing your attention to the breath. Look at it as if this was the first time you're noticing your breath. So start at the nostrils and notice how the breath moves through the nostrils. Notice the change of temperature as you inhale. As you exhale. The coolness of inhalation. The warmth of exhalation. And every breath is different. Every breath is unique. So take your time to notice this breath by breath experience, this moment by moment experience. If you notice that thoughts arise into this moment, simply notice and come back to the breath. So there is an element of curiosity, of caring about this breath. So we're trying to see what we haven't seen yet in this experience of breathing. In a very relaxed and gentle way. And then maybe you can move to the chest and notice how it expands and contracts. So we're changing from doing to simply being. Fully awake, fully present. And when your practice comes to an end, you can offer it and say, may this silence or may this stillness be for the benefit of all. Or may others find this peace, this stillness. And then you bring your awareness to the sensations in the body, especially the areas that are touching the surface, so the soles of your feet, your legs, your back, your hands. The skin against the air. And very slowly begin to open your eyes. now we're all going to open our eyes and have some little time for maybe a little conversation or questions. One little comment I want to make is that this practice, especially through John Kabat-Zinn, he has done it with eating. It's a mindful eating. So it's this rediscovery of our relationship with food and how we eat. So he starts with the racing, and he brings the racing closer to the nose and has a sense of how the racing smells, and then to the ear, and hears the crackling noises of it, and then puts the racing in his mouth and feels how the juices, in the mouth. And so it's an experience of clear seeing of something that we take so much for granted. So it's another example of practice.
I think we have some time for some questions for Juliana. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah.
The idea of not falling asleep.
Yes.
I had a little trouble with that. Going from...
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I fell asleep. Well, I was more in a sleep mode than I was in a mindfulness.
Yes. Yeah. That's very common. It's as common as to having thoughts. So what happens is, depending on the nature of our habits, if we have a very, very busy mind, sometimes we struggle with the constant wave of thoughts. But for people who are physically active, when you relax your body, your brain is accustomed to function in two ways. Either you're moving and you're doing a lot and you're awake, but then the signal of relaxation is I'm going to sleep, because that's the only time where your body is actually resting and very relaxed, when you go to sleep. So then we have to retrain the body, the brain, to let the brain know that there is a third stage in which we can be fully relaxed and fully awake. So it's something very, very common that we all experience, and it goes away with time. When your brain learns that third stage, and it's very extremely relaxing, because you're disengaging from the heaviness of some, normally emotions and thoughts can come with heaviness, like worries of the past, worries of the future. So when we disconnect from that, there is a natural sense of peace. We relate to our natural state of being, which is balanced, it's peaceful, it's centered, it's harmonious. Yeah, but thanks for the question. Yeah. And there's one more over there. Yeah.
Oh, I have the microphone.
Okay.
The question I have is, what is the best way to prepare to get into in your meditation? And then how long should you spend there? Should you set an alarm? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, great questions. So the way of preparing is whatever works for you. For example, if you're a ritualistic person, or there are some things that you like burning a candle, burning some incense, having your own little space, a little corner in your house where you're going to dedicate for that. So your body already knows. It's like, it's like your dog. When it comes to the area, they know that's time to sleep or time to do something. So you go to that corner and you start to create the habit that's where you meditate. So that those, a little ritual that it tells you now it's time to meditate. And then what I use in particular is relaxation. In this time we didn't really do it, because mindfulness really tries not to change the nature of things as they are. And we're just there to observe them. But other practice of meditation, you encourage your body to relax. So I like to do that because I tend to hold stress in my body. So when I sit, the first thing I do is I go through from the feet to the top, top of my head, and tell my body, give my body permission to relax and release, all the tension from whatever, the day or whatever it is. And then I begin the practice.
I have a question about your comment on, and maybe this is okay in other practices, but not in mindfulness, but about how if you see a beautiful sunset, not to think like, wow, that's beautiful, because it's the labeling which connotates judgment. So is there space within mindfulness for appreciation or gratitude, or is that a different kind of practice? Because I associate that comment with a sense of gratitude or appreciation for what's happening. So I don't know. So I guess that's my question. Are those things part of mindfulness, or is that a different practice entirely?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, that was mostly an example that I took, that I just mentioned, but it's not necessarily from mindfulness. So I was just trying to show how we comment on things even when it's something breathtaking, So just to show the habitual patterns. But certainly, especially if we talk about like leaving John Kabat-Zinn here and going into the Buddhist practice, mindfulness comes from Buddhism. There's a huge emphasis on joy and compassion and kindness, because where this is taken us eventually is to a very joyful or blissful space. So there is, I think that even just the caring for this moment brings a tremendous sense of appreciation. So it completely goes with the practice and the spirit of the practice. Absolutely. Yes. Thanks for pointing that out.
First of all, thank you so much. Just the sound of your voice. It's been wonderful tonight.
Thank you.
And so I guess I'm looking at the term guided meditation, the guided portion. Having someone guiding me through this mindful practice, because I have a hard time guiding myself. Do you have any recommendations on literature or other resources that would be helpful getting started on this journey, having someone guiding?
Yes. Yeah, that's a very good point. And even after many years of practice, sometimes hearing the voice of your favorite teacher guiding you through a practice is so powerful and brings you back to practice in a different way. I normally do that whenever I have to give a talk or something. I go and sit with one of my teachers. I mean, not my actual teachers, but like Pema or John Kabat-Zinn. I go and sit with them. And so I think what works best is an audio. It's a video. There's many guided meditations on YouTube. I actually have recorded many guided meditations that are on YouTube. So if you Google my name, if you search my name on YouTube, you're going to find like maybe 20 something meditations that you can listen to. But there's many good teachers. I have a few recordings or YouTube videos, but I also have CDs or MP3s, of their guided practices. But if you go on YouTube, you're going to find, you say mindfulness on YouTube, and you're going to find some teachers doing basic practices. And it's a matter of finding someone you trust and you like as a teacher, and then it's very, very inspiring. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Any other questions?
Do you have a routine, time of day, place, length, period of time, before, meal, after? anything, or is it better?
Yeah, that's such a challenging thing nowadays, to find the time and to commit to a time that you say, you know, that fits within the family schedule and your job and your responsibilities after your job. So and then we're all different. Like, as much as I would like to practice to have, to meditate in the morning as soon as I wake up, that doesn't work for me. No, my mind doesn't know what to do when I do that. It's like, what is going on here? So there's like complete, chaos, no. So I can't do that. Like, the evening time is my time to meditate. So you have to choose your time, what works for you, and it has to be within the schedule that you have. And what the recommendation is normally like, try to follow that pattern, because the body is a little bit like, biologically we are a little bit animals still. So we can retrain ourselves and our patterns just by repetition, in the same way that we train our pets. So we train the body to know that that's the time in which we're going to do this. But it's morning or evening, sometimes noon time, but it can be very busy at that time. So yeah, whatever works for you. What's the best meditation? The one you do. The best time? Yeah, the one time you have, so.
Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you, Juliana, for assisting us on our meditation journey. And I want to thank all of you who came here in person and everyone virtually. Have a peaceful weekend, and I'll see you in church.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.